Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the online workshop on machine learning. This is level 4, workshop number 4 of this very nice series that we've had. My name is Saleha Naghmi Habibullah. I'm a professor of statistics at Connect College for Women, Lahore. And for the past 1 year or maybe a little more, I've been rendering services as honorary director of PISTAR right here in Lahore, Pakistan. The focal person for this workshop is Dr. Syed Wasim Abbas, who I think almost everybody knows him by now because he's the one who's always sending all these great things to you, starting from the Zoom link and ending with the certificates of participation. He's Assistant Director at the Bureau of Statistics, Punjab. All right, the plan for the day. After the words of welcome, I will be introducing Professor Marina Mela, who's the keynote speaker for today. And her address is on classic and modern data clustering. And I would definitely encourage you to put some questions to her. So we've got the Q&A session right there. After that, we will begin the workshop on machine learning by Dr. Reza and Dr. Alireza. We will have a short break after some time. And during that break, I will be introducing to you the online session that will be conducted during the 18th International Conference of Statistical Sciences. The conference is happening from the 18th to 20th of February. And it is like, I can say, in a hybrid mode. Some things are happening online and some would be happening at Imperial College, Lahore. And then after this, all this will be happening during the short break. And if somebody wants to take a break, please do. And after that, but before that, let me tell you right now that in this online session too, just like the World Statistics Day that we celebrated online on the 18th of October 2020, there are international speakers from various continents of the world. All right, after that, we will continue with the workshop on machine learning, and then a question answer session, questions to be put to Dr. Reza and to Dr. Alireza. And today, definitely, I would like you to spend a few minutes to provide verbal feedback on these 4 workshops on machine learning that you have attended. And we will end with a vote of thanks to be given by Ms. Aqsa Abed, my own student, and also the youngest team member here at PISTAR. And we will end then with the closing remarks. Thank you very much for your attention to this. And now I would like to share with you that we have all these dear colleagues of mine as participants from Pakistan. There are so many more dear colleagues of mine from Pakistan. And if I'm missing anybody's name, please accept my apologies. There can be some mistake somewhere, but I hope not. We try our best to do it right. Also, we have international participants, Dr. Waqas Sami, who's very much from Pakistan, but since now he's in Saudi Arabia for many years, so we regard him as an international participant. Dr. Najla Muhammad Karmala from Saudi Arabia. She's been attending so many of our workshops. Ms. Nadia Rahman from Canada, Mr. Yasir Rahman from Canada, who joined us for the workshops on machine learning. We have Dr. Özlem Gurunlu Alma from Turkey, and he's been here for for a number of workshops on these ones on machine learning. Please, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, excuse me for that. And in fact, you can interrupt me right now and correct me. Please do that if that's required. Mr. Farhan Farouk is in Denmark. He has been joining us for the machine learning workshop. And Mr. Mawara Thomas Mwakudisa from Kenya. He is our perpetual participant. You know, he's with us every time. He's one of our, what can I say, the most loyal, one of the most loyal participants from another country for the PISTAR workshop series. Thank you so much, Thomas. All right, now we start the next part of this workshop. We have the keynote address by Professor Marina Mela. And before I invite her to deliver her address, I would like to present to you a short summary of her academic and professional achievements. She is a professor of machine learning and data science at the Department of Statistics at the University of Washington in Seattle in USA. One of the most prestigious statistics departments in America, I think. And I have been so fortunate that I was awarded the Sabbatical Leave Fellowship Award by the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, and because of which I went to Seattle and went to this university as a visiting associate professor. At that time, I was associate professor. This is 2011, July, August, September, October. And Professor Marina Mela became one of my very good friends. All right. So this is her educational, very brief, mention of her educational qualifications. Her PhD is in electrical engineering and computer science from MIT. She is a postdoctoral fellow at Carnegie Mellon. Okay, her employment. If you start from the, not from the top, but from the bottom, you see that she started as a researcher at Microelectronica Enterprises in Bucharest, in Romania. You see, you have to learn now that basically she's from Romania. She's a Romanian, but she has been working and living in America for a long time now. So I don't think I need to read all of this, but you can read it, and this is her professional career. Her academic honors, 1981, Romanian National Mathematics Competition, third position. 84, Best Paper Award, Students Research Forum on Inventix at the Polytechnic Institute of Bucharest. National Merit Fellowship for Outstanding Performance from the Romanian government. Then in 85, Self-Diplomotee, 1985 award for graduating first in her class of 270 students. Wow. And then the Earl C. Anthony Graduate Fellowship from Caltech, declined. I wonder if we have time to find the details of these things, but maybe we can ask her some other time. Darwin College, Microsoft Postdoctoral Fellowship, declined. Simons Fellow, Institute for Pure and Applied Mathematics. She's a program chair at ISML. Is this the Institute of
is the International Conference of Machine Learning.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the Senior Program Committee at ASTATS, UAI, and all these. Organizer of the AMS Mathematics Research Committees on Data Science at the crossroads of analysis, geometry, and topology. This is all very, very current. This is what she's doing right now, along with so many of her other responsibilities. You can read the rest of it, I'm sure. And then all these research grants that she got, just have a look. I will not read them because in the interest of time. Her research and scholarly activities outside of regular appointment. All right, you can have a look at that too. And then what about this very, very, very important activity? She's on the editorial board of the journal entitled Machine Learning, right? She's all
in
these...
in the past, I guess.
Okay. And so reviewer for all these journals, Annals of Statistics, Annals of Applied Statistics, Bernoulli Control and Cybernetics, Computer Systems and Data Analysis, and so many more. You can see that. Invited talks, there's a long list. We just copy pasted the start of it. So you've been to Hawaii also, that's great. I guess it's beautiful. There are 118 publications, we have not counted incorrectly, but again, you can see only the very first few ones. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Professor Marina Mela. And now, Marina, it is my pleasure and privilege to hand over to you for your keynote speech entitled Classic and Modern Data Clustering. So I will now stop sharing the screen, and please go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you very much, Saleha, first of all, for this introduction. It is one of the most flattering introductions I've had recently. But what I hope that you will see, besides my personal successes, is that machine learning is a very strong and exciting community to be in. And machine learning, many people think it's computer science, but I want to say, I'm a statistician, I'm in a statistics department, and I think machine learning is part of statistics. And in particular, the topic that I'm going to talk about, clustering, is also part of statistics. And that is because I think I want to follow the classic tradition of statistics, that is anything that has to do with drawing inferences, drawing conclusions from data that is uncertain and random. So when we have to answer questions where with a change of data, the question may change a little, so it's a random variable, then all of you here who are statisticians, and I understand that many of you are, will say this is statistics. And so in this context, clustering, both classic and modern, are parts of statistics. I will do this talk in the following way. I will start with a high-level view of what clustering is and why is it interesting and why is it hard. Then I'm going to talk about an algorithm, one of the most basic and classic algorithms for clustering. Then if there is time, I would either talk about another classic algorithm for clustering, one that is probabilistic and is actually achieving maximum likelihood, which is a statistical concept and is one of the most cited papers in an area of statistics. And finally, it's not here on the list, but around here, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to basically take questions and see, talk about opening topics that are interesting. And
Marina, if I can interrupt here, we can see the first line in brown color, but the other lines are hidden.
Yeah, but you can still see them, right?
Well,
I will unveil them. So this is an algorithm.
Okay. All right.
And that is another algorithm. So this is chapter 1, chapter 2. And then maybe if there is time, we'll talk about this, or questions and perspectives. So clustering is finding groups in data. And of the examples here, these three are artificial examples, meaning that I generated the data myself, but this fourth is a real data set, and it's a real data set extracted from human cells. So every point is a cell, and these are the concentration of two factors, those two substances in the cell. And in all the cases, the question is, are there how many groups are in the data, and what are the groups? This might look like a childish question if you put it this way, but it's also the first question that a scientist asks when they look at at some data from a process they don't know about. So for instance, in this real data, for which I do not know the answer, but we can consider what the answer might be. They could say, hey, this group of cells, this is a population of cells that maybe are old cells, and this is another population of cells that there may be new cells, or they could be healthy cells and sick cells. And here again, there could be two kinds of anomalies in these cells. Yes, and so finding groups is the first thing we do when we see data that we don't know about. It's called exploratory data analysis. And I hope that this picture shows not only the name, but also the kind of problems that we have in clustering. These problems come from the simplest to the most complicated. So for instance, here, everybody would agree that there are three groups. But here is not clear. Some people may say there are two groups, but some other people may say, well, why there should be the two groups? Maybe it's just one population that has this funny shape. And so some of these questions are decided by statistics, and some of these questions have to be decided by reasons outside statistics, for instance, by analyzing data points from here, and comparing them with data points from here and figuring out if these are two different species from this sample. So the sample comes from a mixture of two populations, or if they are the same species. So I've introduced now a new term, which is actually a statistical term that you may not have encountered it. So mixture. And I said of two populations. So I don't know if this is, some statisticians use it and some statisticians don't, but population means just the distribution from which the data is sampled from. Yeah. So to follow with our examples, whereas here it's very clear that there are three different groups, and they are going to call them clusters. Yes, and so this would be cluster 1. And this, all the data here would form cluster 2. And all the data here would form cluster 3. In this group, there might be one group or two groups. So I'm going to introduce also the notation K. This is the number of clusters. Yeah. So here we could say maybe K is equal to 2, but also it could be that K is equal to 1. In the third picture, maybe it seems obvious that there are 4 groups, but here we see another characteristics that could make our clustering hard, and that is that the shape of these clusters is irregular, it's not round. And so because this shape is not round, we may ask ourselves, is this one group? I'm going to call them clusters from now on, yes? So one cluster, or maybe we have 2 clusters here. Or why not, maybe we have 3 clusters after all. Yes. And that is something that, again, cannot be solved entirely within statistics. A scientist or somebody who wants to find clusters has to tell us, oh, I would like to have, so one scientist would say, I would like to have clusters that are like all the points that are sort of near each other form one cluster. And in that case, this would be a single cluster. But somebody else will say, well, I want points to be near each other, but sort of fall in balls or ellipses. Like maybe you want it to be generated by Gaussian distributions. And in that case, I would count one Gaussian distribution here, points coming from another Gaussian distribution here, and points coming from a third Gaussian distribution here. And that would give me 3 clusters for the same data. And I will show you, so this is what somebody just beginning to talk about clustering like me and you would say, but I'm going to show you on the next page here what a clustering algorithm does with these data. So in particular, if we set the clustering algorithm in a certain way and we tell it to look for round clusters, as I said, then it finds 3 clusters here and 3 clusters in this group here. This is what it does with the cell data that is real data. Yeah. However, if I change the algorithm and I change the settings of the algorithm and tell it, make a cluster if all the points are together and away from other points, then it finds only 4 clusters here, and it finds also a smaller number of clusters here. And one of the problems and one of the difficulties of clustering is to decide by without actually in a principled way whether this clustering is good, whether it is actually fair to say that there are 2 groups, and in the sense the population in green here is different from the population is in red. Yes, let me see if you have questions.
Please go ahead if anybody has any questions right now. I think this is pretty clear, Marina.
Okay, so now I wrote down what I just said, and that is that clustering is finding groups in data, and K is the number of clusters, as I said, and D is the set of points, so it's the sample that we have to cluster, yeah? And it has size little n, and what is C1, CK? This is the partition of the data into clusters. So each of these C1, CK are sets. Yeah. Okay. So then the second informal definition is given a sample of n data points, separate them into K clusters, into K sets of points that are clusters. And there are 2 ways of doing it. The one that I explained here is called hard clustering, where a point belongs to a single cluster. And then there is something called soft clustering, where each point can be separated probabilistic between clusters. And I'm going to show this on the next example. So, for example, let's look at these data, yes? And suppose that we have 2 clusters. And suppose that each of the clusters is, suppose this is cluster C1. So all the points here are in C1, maybe I want to say. And let's say that all the points here should be in C2. However, perhaps this is not satisfactory because look at the points in this area. They should be in between. And so what I would like to say, and that is how I define a partial degree of membership, is the following. I would like to say that for this point, I'm going to mark it in red. So for this point here, gamma, and this is point I, yeah? Gamma I of, this is cluster 1. Gamma I1 is 1/2, and gamma I2 is also 1/2, which means that this point, because it is in between clusters, it makes sense to say that it belongs with probability 1/2 to the first cluster and with probability 1/2 to the second cluster. Yeah. Whereas if I look at another point, let's say a point here, this point here called I prime for it, gamma I prime 2 is equal to 1, and the other gamma I prime 2 is equal to 0, which means that this point belongs with probability 1 to the first cluster, to the second cluster. Yes, and just to go quickly over another example, if I pick another point here, this also would have I double prime, gamma I double prime 1 is approximately 1 because this belongs categorically to the first cluster. Yeah, and this is probabilistic membership or soft clustering. Yeah, so this is soft clustering, and gamma is the degree of membership, which is actually a probability distribution over all the clusters. So in what follows, I'm going to talk mostly about hard clustering, but if you're interested, I'm going to leave some time in the end to talk about soft clustering. Yeah. So this is an overview slide. This explains the many ways that we are going to, that people can find groups in data. The simplest way is the one that I just explained, where the data are points in d dimensions. And the soft clustering is hard, which means that every point belongs to a single cluster. K, the number of clusters, is, I'm going to say known, but then I will explain that, of course, we don't know it, and we have to find ways to choose the best number of clusters. There is also model-based clustering, and if we have time, we are going to talk about this too, and interest. And then there are lots of other ways of grouping data that I'm not going to talk about, but I'm happy to take questions about. One is non-parametric, and ask me at the end what this is. It's actually super interesting, and it's modern for, it's very appropriate for big data. Okay, and then there is clustering that is very popular for networks, where the data are not points but nodes in a network like the internet. And this is actually very modern. Now I have a question for you. This is a slide that actually is very important. Whether you are advanced or beginning in clustering. And I want to ask anyone here, how many of you know what or are familiar with classification, which is also a machine learning term?
Please go ahead, unmute your mic, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you can just raise your hand. There is a, actually, I don't know if you have it here. You don't have a raise hand feature in your Zoom.
Dr. Wasim, do we have that feature? But you can unmute your mic and please answer her question.
So I was just curious how many of the audience are familiar with classification. But if you're not familiar with classification, just to go on a little faster, I'll have more questions. So don't worry, you will ask to answer.
Marina, I do want to interrupt here. Actually, I'm sorry for this, but you know, we do have only a limited time. So maybe you could, maybe we could do a longer, very full-fledged 3-hour session some other time. And at this time, if you would just give the overview, that would be...
That's what I'm doing.
Right.
Yes, of course. Of course. Okay, so basically, if you are not familiar with classification, we're going to say prediction. Yeah, and prediction includes regression. Yeah. So when you want to do prediction, one of the things that is interested is how well you predict future data. Whereas in finding groups in data, there is no such thing like that. The problem is called unsupervised. And unsupervised means that that we want to find something about the structure of the data. There are other problems that are unsupervised that I don't want to go into it, but I hope you see that clustering itself is an unsupervised problem. And it's one of the difficulties of unsupervised problem is to know when are you, what is it that, to formulate mathematically, the problem that one wants to solve. This is much harder for clustering and for any unsupervised problem. So I'm going to present one way to formulate this mathematically, and this is the k-means algorithm. And if you know already about the k-means, just wait for a few minutes and we'll talk about other things that are more advanced and you can ask questions. So how do you have an algorithm to find the number of clusters, to find the clusters in the data? And this is actually a fairly old algorithm, as you see. It's invented in '82 and was reinvented many times. It's an iterative algorithm. So we start with if we have k clusters, then the algorithm starts with k centers. These are denoted mu1, mu_k. And the idea is to place the k centers at the centers of the clusters. However, at the beginning, we do not know where the centers are, so they are placed in random positions. So the initial positions of the centers are here, here, and here. Yes, and they are actually quite far from the data, as you see. But now, what does the algorithm do? First of all, it has two steps and it iterates between the two steps. In the first step, given the centers mu1, mu_k, it assigns the points to clusters. So basically, for every point xi, xi is assigned to, oh, there's a mistake here. This should be argmin. Yes. So it is assigned to the point, to the center with its closest distance. And so if we look at this picture, we see, for example, that that if we draw a line, this line between these two centers, then all the points on this side will be assigned to these centers, and all the points on this side will be assigned to these centers, except that we have to separate these clusters too. And so this becomes C1, and this is mu1, and similarly mu2 and mu3. And now that we have assigned all the points to the centers, we recalculate the centers. So every mu becomes the mean of the points in this group. And if we do this, you can follow on the figure. Mu1 is the mean of all the points in this part of the space, and so it moves here. Mu2 is the mean of the points of these points here and moves here. And mu3 becomes the mean of the points in this place and moves here. As a consequence, if we assign the points to clusters again, and I'm going to do it with a different line, since now the mu's are here, here, and here, the separations move, and what we get is these lines. And now with these lines, we have perfectly separated the data. So the next time we're around, the centers are exactly where they should be, at the middle of the groups. Yes. What do we see from here? We see, for example, that once this happens, once the centers are in the middle of each group, nothing changes. So if we keep running the algorithm again, nothing changes. So in some sense, this algorithm finishes in a finite number of steps. Yes. Also, we can show this is another picture of the algorithm, that there is something, a cost function that is minimized, or if you're familiar perhaps with Lyapunov functions, minimize this function and arrives at something that is a local optimum of this cost function, and we'll see the function in the next slide. How many minutes do I have, Saleha? My clock says that I'm almost finished, but
is it all right if you, is it possible for you to finish in about 7 minutes?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is an iteration, and it decreases a cost function and gets to the local optimum. And because it's an iteration, initialization matters. So where I put the initial points will matter. Yes. And so I'm going to talk about what is the cost function, and that is very simple. It's the sum of squares, sum of square distance between xi and mu_k. This is the function that decreases with every iteration. And then I'm going to talk about how to choose the points, how to choose the centers. Yeah. So the first idea, which is not very good, is just pick them at random like here. So this works here, but it may not work in general. Then the next idea, which is a bit better, is to pick the points randomly, but on data points. So instead of picking them out in the space, we pick 3 points at random here. And this is actually luckier because they are going to be closer to the data. However, this is not always good, because if I now pick randomly 3 other points, I may happen to pick 2 points here and 1 here and miss the third cluster completely, and so get a bad result. Yeah. So if I do this, then the final result will be like this. If I have the wrong initialization, then in the end, I will have 1 cluster here and 2 clusters here. And that's probably not what we want. Yeah. So what is the next idea? Maybe this doesn't happen so often. Well, this is the probability. By this method, the probability of finding all the clusters decreases as a function of k, decreases to 0 very fast. So if I have 2 clusters with probability 1/2, that is a good method. If I have 3 clusters, the probability of being a good method by this way is a little bit more than 20%. And if I have 6 clusters, it's almost 0. So what shall we do? There is something else that we can do that's called fastest first traversal, but I'm going to show you the final algorithm. And that is called the k-log k initialization. And the idea is as follows. I'm going to pick the mu1 to mu k. Here. I'm going to pick a k prime. So if k is my number of clusters, then instead of picking k centers, I'm going to pick more centers, a multiple of k. Yes. So I pick these centers mu1 to k prime at random points from the data set. And then what is going to happen is that if I pick enough centers, then the probability of hitting every cluster with one of them is high. Yes. Now I run one step of k-means, which means that I assign some points to the centers, and I assign every cluster gets some points assigned. Yes. So this is one step of k-means. Yeah. And now from this step of k-means, maybe some clusters, some centers have very few points. So I remove it. But that doesn't remove all the centers. And now I do something that's called fastest first traversal. And this is very nice and clever. And this is this method here, which says, pick one of the centers at random, perhaps this one, and call it mu1. Now, pick another center that's the furthest away from mu1. And in this picture, this would be mu2. Yeah. And now pick a third center that's furthest away from both. And this happens to be this one, mu3. And now because k is equal to 3, I am done. And this is a good starting point for k-means. Yes. And in the next figure, I will show you how good it is. This is a much harder problem because I have 7 clusters and a lot of random points in the middle. Yeah. And with this initialization, I get a perfect clustering. Every cluster has a different color. And you can see here the loss function decreases very fast and decreases to a small number, something like 20. This is the naive initialization. And here the loss function decreases much slower and decreases to something larger. And indeed, the clusters are not correct. So as you see, there are 2 centers in this group, and there are 2 centers for this group of 3. Yes. So this is a poor initialization. This is a good initialization. And so I promise that I'm going to finish. So I'm going to skip model-based clustering and go to the final part of the talk. Actually, I'm going to go to one before. I want to just use the opportunity to tell you that this figure illustrates the difficulty of clustering. We have to have methods, and this is what I'm working on actually, to have methods to distinguish between this clustering and this clustering. statistically, from statistical principles. Yes, because both of them could be correct in some situations. And now I want to tell you about things that I haven't talked about, and I guess I have only 1 minute. And one of them is clustering graphs, and graphs can be represented by matrices. And matrices can be transformed into other matrices. These matrices have eigenvectors, and therefore this clustering of graphs is called spectral clustering. Here is an illustration of non-parametric clustering, which is the following problem. Actually, I'm going to skip it, but you can ask me about it. Yes. And then the last one is the problem that I'm actually working on right now. Actually, these are results from 2018. So I'm working on the next stage of this problem. Suppose that we have a clustering that is correct or a clustering that is not correct because we basically broke this cluster into two. Or data that actually has no clusters at all. And our algorithm still finds groups. Can we distinguish these cases just with mathematics and statistics alone, without looking at the data? Because sometimes we can't see the data. It's in too high dimensions to visualize. In the work that I did in 2017 and in the area that I work right now, we can, in the sense that we can run an algorithm that will tell us this is a good clustering. I'm not going to explain what stable is, but it will give us a guarantee that this is a good clustering. And it will actually, in this case where the clustering is bad, and in this case, when the clustering, when there is there are no clusters in the data, it will say, I cannot tell it's a good clustering. I cannot guarantee anything. And this is actually a very powerful method. It's exact in the sense that it has these guarantees are deterministic and finite sample. So with this, I'm happy. This demonstrates how the method works on data. With this, I'm happy to stop and to take questions. Thank all of you.
Thank you so much, Marina. I think I must ask people to go ahead with some questions. Dr. Kulsum, do you have a question?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Wonderful presentation, Dr. Marina Mela. My question to you is that you have mentioned the cost function as well. So my question relates to the clustering, that how the inclusion of the cost would have an effect onto the choice of the clusters. And if you could explain a little bit about non-parametric clustering, how it is going to work, and we are going to compare it with the parametric. So what are the consequences that we are going to bear, or in how many ways the non-parametric would give us the better result compared to the parametric?
I'm starting with the non-parametric. The problem with non-parametric is that some data are not like this. So for this, we know that there are three large groups, but sometimes it can happen, and I'm going to draw it here, that there are three large groups, but then there are some smaller groups, and then, it's like pebbles, smaller and smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller. Yeah. And you can, of course, say, well, these really small ones are outliers. So in fact, there are like 8 or 10 groups here. But that's not actually what happens, because even though the majority of the data is in the larger groups, as you get more and more data, you see that these are not outliers. These are actually small groups. And this happens very often in real life. Like, for instance, if you look at articles in the internet or topics in the news, there are topics that have many, many articles, and then there are topics that have few articles, but they're true topics. Or if you look at like disciplines of study across programs in the United States, and this is actually a real data set. There are groups of 1,000 disciplines, and these are like programs in computer science. And then there are other programs in home economics. And they're all there is a group of just four programs, but that was a true cluster. It was not some random outliers. So they are not something to be thrown away. And so there are data where the reality is that the more data you collect, the more clusters you see. Yes. And so the number of clusters K makes no sense. because we can't distinguish between, we don't know, we can say this is a cluster and maybe a single point is not a cluster, but we don't know where to stop calling them clusters, because we know that as we get more data, these are going to grow too. Yes. That is part of non-parametric statistics, where the model dimension changes with the data. That's why it's called non-parametric clustering. So it's a part, it's a way of, it's a paradigm that depends on the data that we have. So we have to choose the paradigm by the data. And the other question was about the cost function. In this talk, I do not have other cost functions, but if you have heard of, I can give an example from the second part of the talk. Okay. Let's go here. So if I choose a cost function, if I use the k-means algorithm, the k-means is, if you remember, the loss is least squares. So the loss is xi minus mu k squared, sum over I. Yeah. So this loss will say that this loss will tend to make balls out of the clusters. Yeah. But I could choose a loss that is xi minus mu k, let's say norm 1. And that this is, so this is called k-means, this is called k-medians. And so this looks very similar. However, it will be more acceptable. It will be less sensitive to outliers. So it's going to find other shapes of the clusters. And these are the most common ones. There are costs that have to do with, let's say, average distance. So instead of the sum of the distances should be 1 over the size of the clusters. So this is average distance. And again, this is a different cost function with different properties, where actually it pays to have larger clusters because it reduces the loss. So I have tried to answer with as much information as possible in the short time, but I will stop now. But feel free to send me an email if you'd like to know more, and I'll send you more slides for a more or things to read for a longer presentation.
Thank you for the detailed answer, Dr. Marina.
My pleasure.
We maybe have time for one more question. Would anybody else want to ask a question? Especially those who are working in this particular area. I mean, multivariate analysis.
Okay, ma'am. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes, please. Could you,
dear Dr. Marina, it was wonderful.
Is it possible to open your camera? Because Dr. Marina Mela said to me that she would be happy if...
Ma'am, actually, there is a distortion, so that's why.
Okay, all right, all right.
Yeah. Ma'am, there was a term written that convex optimization. Dear Marina, can you please explain what does it mean for that exactly? The convex optimization. It was,
yep. Yes, I know where it was here. So optimization is finding a minimum of a function. And convex optimization means that, so it's minimum over x in A of f of x. Yeah. And if f of x is a convex function, which means that it has positive second derivative. Yeah. And A is a convex set, then this is called a convex optimization problem. And these problems are the easy problems in optimization, because we can prove that there is at most one minimum.
Okay.
Yes, so there are no local minima in this case.
Okay.
And they're very
Thank
easy,
you
like
very much.
they're much easier to solve. They're algorithms that are standard for convex optimization.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thanks a lot, dear
My
Marina.
pleasure.
Thanks.
These are great questions. Just to
Thank
all
you.
to the point.
We have Dr. Reza here, who is our lead instructor for the workshop. Reza, do you have a question that you would like to put to Marina? Then that would be the last question. Dr. Reza?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Saleha and Dr. Marina. So actually, I am going to ask like an empirical question that based on your experience, which of those methods you described here, like model-based or non-parametric clustering, which one, in fact, because if we, in reality, we have so many methods and so many machine learning methods. So beyond going to train and test and see whatever we can exclude from the data. So what is, in your hunch, what is the most effective way of clustering for a large amount of data set?
Oh, thank you. This is actually like the best and the most important thing to ask. So I'm glad you asked. I think we have these many methods because we have to find a method that is adapted to the data, because every method finds only what it knows to be a cluster. So for instance, if I change the loss, I find a different shape of clusters. And so we can't, we have to do what's called model selection in other statistics. We have to adapt the methods to what we know about the data. However, in big data, as I explained, it's very rare that you have separated groups. So I would say that with the advent of big data, non-parametric methods have to be considered. Like one can do fast and quick things like with K known and try to find the K. But in fact, in big data, if one has to be serious about finding groups, then these methods that are non-parametric should prevail. The problem is that when K doesn't have a meaning, then clusters also don't have meaning either, or they're harder to, it's more work to find the meanings. Also, like all this is based on graph data. And again, we have to invent new methods because the data changes too. But
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. I think this has been great. I wish we could have gone on and on and on, but now we have Reza and Alireza coming up with their, all the hard work that they've been putting into it. And I would like to request you, Dr. Marina, I know that it is about almost 2 a.m. at your place, but if possible, you can stay with us and maybe you would like to hear a bit from Reza and Alireza until you get to...
Yes. But I may excuse myself before the end. But I will stay.
Right, certainly.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. And
thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for the wonderful audience and for your attention.
I will share my screen now. Coming back to my screen, let me start from the slide. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the end of the talk and the Q&A session. The keynote address by Professor Marina Mela, one of my dear friends from the University of Washington. Thank you very much, Marina. I'm really, really very grateful to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to start the level 4 and the last one for this series of the workshop on machine learning by Dr. Reza Arabi Belaghi. And I want to give you the great news that he has been promoted and he's now Associate Professor of Statistics. So congratulations, Reza, on your promotion. And previously, people will remember that we were writing Assistant Professor, now he's Associate Professor. And also the co-instructor, Dr. Alireza Safariyan, who is Assistant Professor at the Allama Tabatabai University in Tehran. Of course, Reza is at the University of Tabriz in Iran. So after that, I will would you like me to stop sharing and you can share your slide? This is the first slide by Dr. Reza. Is that all right?
Thank you, Dr. Saleha. Alireza will start. Firstly, Alireza will start with the session.
Okay, Alireza, please go ahead. I've stopped sharing and you can now share your slides.
Hi, Dr. Saleha. Thank you very much to you, and thanks for Dr. Marina for her very good and useful presentation about the very good subject. At first, I will talk about a neural network, and then I will go ahead. I will come to Dr. Arabi to go ahead in deep learning methods. Let me share my screen. Is that okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. In this session of the machine learning workshop, that it is fourth session of that, we want to talk about a very important method in the machine learning, that is namely neural network, that is very good and useful in finding relationship between our variables about response or predictors, and very much more problems that we should find models for them. But machine learning is not completely statistical method. It is a very computational method, and but I want to talk about this method at first. You know, the neural network is an information processing machine, and it can be viewed as analogous to a human nervous system. Okay, just like human nervous system, which is made up interconnected neurons, neural network is made up of interconnected information process units. The information processing units do not work in a linear manner. In fact, the neural network draws its strength from parallel processing of information, which allows it to deal with non-linearity. Neural network becomes handy to infer meaning and detect patterns from complex data sets. So neural network is considered as one of the most useful techniques in the world of data analytics. However, it is complex and is often regarded as a black box. That is, users view the input and output of a neural network, but remain mechanism of a neural network, and they get hands-on experience to implement in our language software. A neural network is modeled characterized by an activation function, which is used by interconnected information processing units to transform input into output. We try in this session only very briefly talk about the mechanism of the neural network, and we try to use that in real data to analyze that by R. At this, I try to compare this method by our regression methods. You know, in the ordinal least square regression, we try to minimize our linear model by minimizing the errors and find the coefficients intercept of the model. You know this in this method, response variable responds directly and linearly to change in the inputs. Another example of the machine learning method was principal component regression that we talked in the third session of this workshop, and we tried to find the principal components from our observations and try to find the good linear functions of these principal components, and then we find the linear regression of these predictors by these principal components. And you saw that the response variable responds indirectly but linearly to change in the inputs. And then we can find our response by this method. But in neural network, we have three layers, three important layers. At first, we have input layers that they are predictors, our predictors, and then we try find the functions that make transform the input layer, and we call that hidden layer of neurons. And then by these neurons, we can predict our output layer that is named Y. Then the Y variable responds to the change in inputs indirectly and non-linearly. So it is very generally of the methods, but another thing and beneficial of the neural network is that we don't need a very complex and very initial conditions about finding the model. For to find the method in the neural network, we need to describe a sigmoid activation function. Sigmoid activation function try to find a relationship between input layer and the inputs to find the relationship between the hidden layers that we call that neurons to the input layer. If we use only linear function, then it is very simplest model, but we can use the sigmoid function, any function you can, for example, you can take a example by we had a sigmoid function in the logistic regression. In the logistic regression, you saw that we couldn't use the linear method, but we used that the transformation, exponential transformation of the response variable to find the good prediction function to predict our output and target. Then we can summarize these functions in the sigmoid activation function. If we have only one single neuron, we have only one function sigmoid, and if we have only one predictor, then we have one intercept and one coefficient regression that we call that alpha 0 and alpha 1, and we make a linear transformation for them, so we can find v equal to alpha 0 plus alpha 1 x. And if we apply the activation function to this linear function, we can find a sigmoid function and we can predict our response variable by this output function. Some of them we exampled here. At first, you can see the sigmoid function that it is S-shaped function, very similar to logistic regression. And we can use tangent hyperbolic of x to describing an activation function. And if we use only linear function, then the linear function will be simple like that linear regression function. Okay, at all we use only very general function to find the relationship of the input layer to hidden layers to find the at first combination of the variables, and we call that sigmoid function. If we use at first of the model, if you have only one neuron, then it was very simple, and you can find the activation function. But if we use several much more predictors, then we can find another sigmoid function that it is very general in multidimensional function, multidimensional information of the predictors. So it is very general in the finding the multi-regression or multidimensional method model in the our data. Okay. If you at first we try to find the neural network with only one input and one neuron and one target called Y. Okay, we have at first we have only one neuron called Z variable, and that is Z is equal to sigmoid of the this linear combination of the X and 1. And then after we use that this hidden layer that we call that Z variable, then we can find the linear function of this hidden layer, the hidden variable, and find the regression function to the regression model to predict our response variable. Then we will have another intercept and coefficient to our new model. So beta 0 will be bias of the model, and beta 1 is our rate of the model, or we call that coefficient of the model. If we simply represent our neural network, we can see that we have three principal and three principal part in our neural network model, that we call that input layer, that we call that X, and other one is hidden layer, and at last of this we have output layer. Okay, different type of the neural network. At first we use only one hidden layer, hidden neuron, and we find the model by this simple method. If we want to use two hidden layer called the Z1 and Z2, we can find another neural network, and if we use another hidden layer to finding the neural network, you can see in this third part of this models, it is very general in finding the neural networks models. Then we have three, for example, three predictors, and we transform them to first layers Z1 and Z2, and then we repeat this procedure to find the new another layer that called that E2, and then we use E2 to find the relationship of them to our response variable. So this is this neural network model has two hidden layers, hidden layer number 1 and hidden layer number 2. Our terminology of the neural network is that if you want to use only the relationship of each of the nodes in each layer without any relationship between the nodes in each layer, we call that feed-forward neural network. But if we use two ways of the relationships of the hidden layer and input layer, we call that recurrent network. Then we have two types of terminology of neural network. So a very important and very useful system in finding the neural network method is that multi-layer perceptron. We call that MLP. That it is very general, and we can use that to finding our neural network model. That it has any number of inputs, and it has one or more hidden layers with any number of units, and it uses a linear combination function in the hidden and output layers, and it uses a sigmoid activation function in the hidden layers, and it has any number of outputs with any activation function, and it has connections between the input layer and the first hidden layer, between the hidden layers, and between the last hidden layer and the output layer. The terminology is summarized in this slide. You can see the at first we find the linear combination of the input layer, input data, input layer, and then we use a sigmoid function that we call the activation function to find the relationship of the input layer and hidden layers variables, and then we use the hidden layers to find the our general model to predicting our y. Then these functions g and sigma are activation functions, and alpha 0 and beta zeros are bias of the model, and alpha and beta are weights of the connections. Neural network with one input, two neurons, and one target is summarized here. You can see here at first we have only one predictor x, and we have a bias 1 here, and we find the relationship of the input layer to z, that they are our hidden layer nodes, and then we can find the final model by using the sigmoid functions to combine these hidden layer nodes to find the final model to predict the y. You can see here the method can summarize in this picture. You see that the relationship of the y and x is summarized in this curve shape. If we compare the regression versus neural network, you know that in the linear regression we use minimize error function, this function. Then we try to minimize sum of squares errors, but in the neural network, we should find this loss function in the global. It's not global in the neural network. We should try another methods to minimize the errors in the finding good model. So we can use numerical methods to try to know about the goodness of fit model to our data. Fitting the neural network by backpropagation algorithm. Backpropagation algorithm tries to find the coefficients in a loop. Then we try to find the coefficients of the model at first by supposing initial values of the coefficients, and then we try to find the coefficients and estimate the coefficients by making a loop of optimization method that we call that the descent derivation to find our coefficients. I don't try to talk about this process. So I use only them I want to know that we only want to find our beta zeros, beta 1, and alpha 0 and alpha 1. If we find them, estimate them, then our model will be explicit. Okay. Okay. If we use this loop method to find our coefficients, in each of the step, we try to find our coefficient, and then after applying this method, this model to our train data and test them to minimize our loss function, and then try to update our coefficient by minimizing the error and find the good and suitable coefficients to make a good model. So in each of this loop, we try to learn a step because the network attempts to remember the given sample. Then we have two methods in learning. At first, batch learning, if the weight updating uses all the training sample, like the nervous slide that we saw that, and other one is incremental learning, and if the weight updating uses the training sample one at a time. So it is two learning method. Batch learning is slow in the application, but convergence is guaranteed. But if we use the incremental learning that we call that online learning, it is very fast, but convergence is not guaranteed. Okay, so then different of these fitting algorithms is that back propagation is slow, incremental back propagation is fast, but not convergence guaranteed. And another thing is that quick propagation is reliable, faster, and is faster, and leverage Marquardt is a small least square network and takes very make memory if you want to try this method. And another one is Gaussian network. It's good for medium size of the data, And the conjugate gradient is good for large size and it take low memory. So we try most of the time use this conjugate gradient or descent gradient descent method to find our coefficients of the model. So the features of the neural network is that it provides a joint framework for prediction and classification. Then it is useful in two types of the supervised machine learning, and it can describe both linear and nonlinear responses, and it can accommodate multi-dimensional correlated inputs. As you know, we talked about that. We don't have any preconditions and restrictions in finding in compiling this model to our data. So the neural networks are normally overfitted. Validation is a must. Then maybe the neural network model can be overfitted or maybe it's underfitted. So we should try use that use cross validation to making good and suitable model to our data. Another thing is that it's neural network is a little difficult to interpret our data because it's very non-directed, and it's very hard to interpret about the relationship of the response variable and inputs. And another thing is that convergence problems are not uncommon. So convergence problems is very important in the finding our coefficients in the neural network method. And if we use the conjugate gradient method, it's not very hard, very important problem, and most of the time our fitted neural network is very useful in predicting and good finding good predict about our response. I tried to compare our methods in the machine learning summarized here. You can see that neural networks, however, it's not good in some of these characteristics, but it's very useful in extracting linear combination of features, and its power of prediction is very good and useful in predicting the response variables in the future. Other methods are here. You can see another one is that Mars multinomial multiple regression, multiple adaptive regression splines. It's very good, but it's not very powerful in the predicting. You see that the neural network is very good here compared to other ones. Okay, Dr. Arabi will go ahead about the deep learning. This section, if I have time, try to run my code about the neural network.
I would like to say that we should, I think, have a break now. And if we have time later, then you could do the algorithm, please.
Okay.
But I would like to invite questions of all that has been presented up till now. Anybody, if you have any question, please. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead,
Dr. Reza.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Reza, it was really great and wonderful.
talk, and you were discussing in the very initial slide about the sigma function, is it?
Okay.
And what I understood from that, you said that will be become in the linear combination, like the regression model, just you have built it up. After the, you said it's tan hyperbolic transformation, that's it?
Yes, yes, hyperbolic.
When we take the tan hyperbolic transformation, like
okay,
this is the logistic one, is it? The two, yes,
yes.
exactly.
First of it is that the logistic, and second one is tangent hyperbolic.
Exactly. When you take the transformation of the sigmoid function, like in the tan hyperbolic, then now it's become linear, is it? So you were saying?
No,
No.
We don't have any restriction about our sigmoid function. Sigmoid function is that it can be definite about the problem. We try to find a good sigmoid function. Is that you know that in the neural network, important thing is that we should try find good sigmoid functions to make a good model. You know, these are the sigmoid functions that they are very well known in the prediction. At the last of my slide, you see that some activation functions that they are very useful in the neural network. But recently, in the for example, Perceptron method that is very useful in this decade, and it used this rectified linear unit. Yeah, you know, here it's very simple and very useful. You know, other activation functions make very much more memory and make and they need very powerful system and CPUs of the computers in finding the model. But this method is very fast, you know. So recently they try to use this this function to as a sigmoid function.
Okay, to make it linearized. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Is there any other question? One last question.
Yes,
Dr.
Okay. Well,
yes,
I have a question too, but the other member could ask it first, and then I can proceed with my question.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thanks. Hi.
Okay, I would like to inform everybody that we have Dr. Attila Göktaş with us, who has been one of our invited speakers from Turkey. I also want to say right now that we just now, Dr. Ali Hadi, Professor Ali Hadi has joined us, the past president of the Islamic Country Society of Statistical Sciences. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Hadi, for being with us. Attila, please go ahead with your question.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. It is Attila Göktaş from Muğla Sıtkı Koçman University from Turkey. It was my first time listening neural networks, very constructive presentation related to neural networks. I just wonder, you have two algorithms for the neural networks. One, you call it online, and the other one was batch algorithms, right? And the batch one is slow one, and it's guaranteed for the optimal solution. And the other one is, that slide, fast convergence is not guaranteed, you say. And I'm wondering if you can use halfway you get from the online learning, and from the rest of half you use batch learning. So you use two of them and you speed up the process and you guarantee the solution. Can this be possible in neural networks using both of them at the same time? Use the advantage of the speed of the online learning and the guarantee of the batch learning. Would that be possible?
Yeah, it's a very important and very good question about the neural network. You know, the neural network is very useful, but we can use the neural network if we have very much more training set. You know, we have to have a very large set of the data to make a training, and then we can use the training model to predict our response variable in the test set. But the problem in the neural network is that if you have only a small set data, so we cannot trust our data. Most of the chemical scientists use neural network because they have a lot of data, and their model will be very trusted. But when we have a small set data, then we should prepare the neural network. Deep learning try to overcome these problems of the neural network that Dr. Arabi, Dr. Reza will talk about the deep learning. Deep learning try to solve this problem, and it tries to make a confidence to us about the convergence of the method, and it only used the online learning. The deep learning try only used to online learning as it's very fast, and another thing is that we trust about convergence.
Okay. Thanks for the answer.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Kulsum, maybe this will be the last question at this point in time. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Naghmi. Thank you so much, Dr. Alireza, for the wonderful talk that you have rendered, and you have shared, a lot of new concepts with us. My question to you is that, as far as you have explained that as far as the interrelationship between the response and the output variables is concerned, if they are, linear, we can apply neural networks. What if the relationship is, non-linear? Can still we apply the neural networks, and how they are going to work with that kind of relationship? And my next question is about one of your slides where you have mentioned the hidden layers. And in one of the models, you have shown that there was one hidden layer, and in another example, you have shown that there were two, hidden layers. I mean, how we can decide, is that something relating to the moderating relationship between the variables, or is it something else? I mean, how could we decide upon the hidden layers? Is it dependent on to the type of relationship between the response and the, output variables?
The hidden layers only can use the sigmoid function, okay? But the sigmoid function is a function of the linear combination of the input layers, okay? Because if we use another method in the at first layer, then the rate of the system to find the model will be very hard, okay? The model will be very complex. We have a very important principle in the finding the models in the statistics. We have it was named parsimony principle. We try to find the models that they are all the models are models are very huge in the statistical methods or machine learning method, but some of them are useful. If we find the model, we try to model that it is very useful and is very simple. We try to. I don't know. I could find about your question or not. Only thing that we try to find the model with less complexity and good prediction in the future.
So it is basically about the model parsimony that it relates to actually.
Exactly.
And my other question was about the non-linear combination. So whether the neural networks have had the capacity to cover for the non-linear kind of relationship as well.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand your question.
You have talked about the linear combination that are to be followed as far as the sigmoid functions are being concerned. So my question is that, can we, as far as the sigmoid function is being concerned, can we talk about the non-linear function as being the part of the sigmoid function as well?
Exactly, yes. The sigmoid function is very, completely free in taking that, but it should be useful in our model. For example, in the logistic regression, you saw that we should find the function that its response would be in the between 0 and 1, because we want to predict the probability. It cannot be greater than the 1 and less than 0. So the sigmoid function is very important thing in here, and it depends on our problems.
Okay, I would like to interject here. We can have more questions later, ladies and gentlemen. It is already 3:40, so I would like to request you to allow me to now commence the short break. You could, Alireza, maybe you could stop sharing your slides for a short while, and I can then share my slides and talk about the online session.
I stop my share screen.
It is still being shared. Maybe you can stop sharing it now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am sharing my screen now, and I'm coming now to the slideshow. All right. Can you see my slides? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the short break, but in this time only, I would like to talk about the conference that is coming up. So anybody who's interested, you're more than welcome to stay. This will take about 5 minutes, and the break itself will be just like maybe 7 minutes or 8 minutes. So this conference is going to happen on the 18th, 19th, and 20th of February. And the venue is Imperial College of Business Studies, Lahore. Because of the virus, the SOPs will be followed. And then there are also going to be some things are going to happen online. In particular, I would like to talk about, first, let me talk about the conference topics. You can see this list here. It includes big and small data analysis as other in addition to so many other things. And also, this is the tentative program. There's a half-day city tour as well. So all those who are within Pakistan, at least you should be thinking of coming here. But even the tour will have to be with all the SOPs required for the virus. And then this is the registration form, just in case anybody still hasn't registered and would like to register. And now I want to talk about this online session, which is one of the highlights of day one. So this is, again, so many invited speakers from so many different countries of the world, like we had at the occasion of the World Statistics Day. We have Dr. Shahjahan Khan, our past president of ISOS from Australia. We have Dr. Akay Unvan from Turkey. Akai is very well known to Attila, who's with us today. We have Dr. Enriqueta Reston. She's from Philippines. We have Dr. Olawale O from Nigeria. We have Dr. Laura Martignan from Columbia University. Columbia, he's basically from Columbia, but I think at this time she's working in Italy. Also, we have Professor Dr. Kevin Keane from UNBC, the University of Northern British Columbia in Canada. Okay, I thought it will be nice to share their photographs with you. This is our very own Dr. Shahjahan Khan, who's done tremendous work for the Islamic Country Society of Statistical Sciences as president and even otherwise. Then we have Dr. Akai Unvan from Turkey. I had the pleasure to meet him in Turkey when I was invited there by Attila. And this is Dr. Enriqueta Reston. I had the opportunity to meet her in Japan for the ICOTS conference back in 2018. And then she visited Pakistan also prior to COVID-19. I think it was 2019 when she visited in Punjab University. Then we have Dr. Olawale Au from Nigeria. And he also has a lot to his credit. I must say that Thomas, our participant who's always with us, he is the one who connected me with Dr. Olawale O. This is Dr. Laura Martignan. She says that people usually pronounce Laura, she said to me, but it is actually Laura. So that's why I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. And she's a very senior lady and a lot of things to her credit. And this is Professor Dr. Kevin Keane. He was one of my fellow students when I was at the University of Toronto on government scholarship a very long time ago. And I've known him and his wife for a very long time. And he also came to Kinnaird College in 2012 upon my invitation. That was his sabbatical year. So he was able to be with us at Kinnaird College for 17 days. And he rendered so many workshops. Marina Mela, the keynote speaker for today, also came to Kinnaird College, and she was with us for 10 days. In that same year, both of them came. This was 2012, and Marina also rendered a wonderful workshop at Kinnaird College. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, we have a galaxy of statisticians from around the world. Inshallah, for this upcoming online session on day one of the 18th International Conference of Statistical Sciences right here in Lahore. So if you would like to register exclusively for this online session, please contact none other than our very dear Dr. Syed Wasim Abbas, who will then give you the details. Obviously, because this will be only one session, the registration fee will be less than what it is for this workshop. And of course, all those people who are not in Lahore and not in Pakistan, they can then register for this session exclusively. And those people who are within Lahore even, but not participating in the conference for whatever reason, but then you can be registering for this one particular session. So this was the advertisement I wanted to make. And I wanted everybody to know that we have been working hard to get this going, along with so much other hard work that is being done for the conference. I will stop sharing the screen and I will take a little break myself, and I will request all of you to take a little break too. Maybe we can meet again at 3:54 p.m. On my laptop, it says 3:48 p.m. And I would like to request Dr. Ali Hadi to say a few words at the beginning of the next session as soon as we meet again. Thank you. So I suppose, yeah, it is being recorded still, of course. So Dr. Ali Hadi, please Please say something.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate attending these workshops. I benefit a lot myself, being a statistician. The area of data science is very interesting to me. I'm sorry I came late because in this part of the world I live in, we work on Sunday. I'm teaching on Sunday, and I actually dismissed my class half an hour early to come late.
Okay.
It up for them. I appreciate your hours so in the morning, but I will be attending, inshallah.
Okay,
So
that's great. That's
all the
great.
work that you've been doing, Dr. Saleha and Dr. Abbas, and all of you have been working very hard, and I think the outcome is great. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, certainly it is teamwork that makes things happen. And it is, everybody is so much, we're all like one,
Yes,
and it's so great to have the support of people like you and all the other people also who've been doing all these talks for us and all these workshops. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I will now, without any further delay, I would like to ask Dr. Reza Arabi Belaghi to continue with the workshop. And I believe that Reza is going to start the part which is on deep learning. Is that so?
Sorry, Dr. Sal. Alireza will run his code for a few maybe minutes, then I will start with that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Alireza.
Thank you very much. Is that okay, my screen, Dr. Saleha?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I want to run the real data to make a model and find the neural network method to apply the neural network method to our data. Our data is about the predicting rating of the cereals, cereal variables such as the calories and proteins and so on. You can see here our data is that the predictor variables are calories, proteins, and fat, and sodium, and fever to make a rating our cereals. So here, our dimension of data is that 75 observation with 6 variable, and the 6th variable is our response variable, and others are predictors. Okay, we use a sample size for the training set, 60% of the observations, and remain of 10 to use test our model. Okay, and to simplify our data, you see that our data are very different scales. For example, colors are much more than 50, 70, and more than 10. And for example, others are small, yeah, or sodium is very greater than the 100 or others. So we try use a scale to scale our data, and for the scale data we use the mean and max scale data, because this is a scale method keep our data distribution, and I use this scale method. And the package that we use that is that neural net. You should install the neural net package, and after that I make train and test data scale data sets. And at first I use the neural network model to our training set by 3 hidden layers, and the action function, activation function, tangent hyperbolic. You can change that, for example, logistic method and other function. You can definite your customized activation function here and use its name here. I use, for example, tangent hyperbolic method. It is a plot of the this model. You can see here we have 5 variables at the first layer, and use them to find the hidden layers nodes that they are neurons, 3 neurons, and we use them to find the relationship of the response variable that was rating. And you see that our biases are here. For example, beta 0 is 0.63, and for each of the hidden layers, we had 3 biases, and other ones were our coefficients. You can see each of them over the each of the connections. You can see here. And the error for our data is that our model is that 7%, and the number of loops that apply to finding our model is 383 steps, and the model obtained as you see here. Okay. Then we can change the activation function. We can use the logistic, for example, and you see that the coefficients will be changed. Okay, and you can use another activation function by describing here. To test our model, we use predicting model in the test. So if we use the prediction test, compute the test set, then after predicting the test set, we use plot prediction of the model and the original values of the response in the test set. You can see here that you see they are very the prediction is very good, and the relationship of this prediction and the original values of the response are very close to each others. And I try to find the root of MSE of the model by this function. You see that our RMSE will that 6.10. But if we want to find that our model works very well and we don't have overfit or underfit, we should try use cross-validation of the neural network model. So I tried that by library boot and the library PLYR, and use K-fold cross-validation with 100 repeats. I use this function to find the fit model to each of the loops and find the RMSE for each of the models in the repetitions. But because of this loop is take a little much more time, I tried it before and saved that. So I only call that from my computer, and you can see the box plot of the RMSE of this cross validation. You can see much more of them of the RMSE are less than 10. Another thing that the neural network is the performance of neural network models sensitive to training tests. So I tried to find the median of the RMSE in each of the iteration and plot it. You can see it in this plot. You see that if we use 10 of training, you see that the RMSE is very high. And then if we use much more length of training set, the RMSE is getting better. You can see it's RMSE getting smaller values. I tried the another models in the neural network. You can try it from the help of this package and other parameters that are useful that they are useful in the this model. You can change them and find another models, much more models, and compare them to find the good model to your data set. Thank you very much. It's a small sample of the applying the data neural network model to real data set. If you have a question, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we should now begin the next part. And if there are any more questions regarding this part, maybe we can do them at the end. So I would like to request now Dr. Reza to please begin your part.
So thank you very much, Dr. Saleha, and thank you very much, Dr. Alireza, for a nice presentation. So in fact, I'm going to start to say what is the deep learning and what is the artificial neural network. And so I wonder, Dr. Saleha, do you have my voice and screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So before going forward, so let me share this first slide with you. This is the structure of a neuron. And then we can, simply figure out why we say artificial neural network and what is the relationship between our talk and with the neuron. So this is the structure of a neuron in our body. So these are the dendrites. So here inside there is something called soma, and then we have axon terminals. So why we say artificial neural network? Because the dendrites will be in fact the predictors. So they will got in fact the predictors or the covariates, and then there will be some in fact functions or some analytical rules, and then they will in fact transmit the information to the to the axon terminals, and then they will again start to do some abstractions, and then they will transmit to another neurons, and until the decision will be made. So for example, if I put my finger on a very hot things, then our neurons will immediately tell us to our brain, and our brain will tell us, okay, pick up your hand. So that is the way that, like any artificial neural networks will work. So I'm going to start with some of the, in fact, the main question that our audience asked. So for example, Dr. Kulsum asked about the activation function, what we should use and why we should have this activation, that activation. And also Dr. Goktash asked about, so mixing those, low and fast learning methods. So I will answer all of those questions, but in fact, deep learning is not something miraculous. It's using very basic mathematics, not so much hard. And I'm going to explain why it's not so much hard for us and why we can learn it very quickly. So in fact, deep learning or machine learning is something now we can tell that this is work like a brain or think, and then they can understand. Now, it has been in fact, it started in 1950s, and then machine learning emerged in 1980s to 1990s, and then there was a gap, and I will tell you why there is a gap. And after 2010, we started with deep learning. And in fact, so why these methods, created? One reason is to tell, to analyze very, hard things like pictures or words or pattern or image recognition, etc. So simply, if we have, a few column of data set, like 60, 100, 200, etc. So then using these sophisticated methods, will not have so much performance, as it has been shown by medical science in the very recent systematic review. Systematic review is a kind of science that try to combine all of the findings in a systematic way, and then to say what is the output from those findings. And recent findings show that machine learning, in fact, has not no benefit or performance benefit over logistic regression, simple logistic regression. One reason could be that because in medical science we have sometimes, mostly we have, data of, size of 100 or 1,000, etc. But if we go to image, if we have lots of tons of images or millions of images, then the problem will be changed. Another thing is that, so in statistical learning or in statistical methods, we can say that there is, if the case is dog or cat, but maybe in some picture there is both dog and cat. And for example, in this picture, what we see here, there is a building and there is a church and there is a trees, etc. And how we can classify this image and how we can find the object in this image. So in this way, in fact, we don't have any tools rather than going to some, deep learning methods. So, so the recipes of machine learning or deep learning, we can say that we have an input data, we have an example, or we have outcome variable, and we have a measure, a way to measure the algorithm is working well or not. So these are the things that we all know them. So now, for any neural network and deep learning, in fact, so what Alireza taught was, in fact, was a neural network with one or single hidden layer, or even without the hidden layer. So essentially what those hidden layers are, they are kind of, making abstraction of the data. So if I have a data of, let's say 100,000 of, cases or variables, then I should have an abstract of them to make, better prediction. So essentially layers is created to make some abstractions, or it's something like principal component analysis to make abstraction, to remove the noise, etc., so that we can have simply better performance. So for any deep learning artificial neural network, we need to have input data, we need to have a layer, we need to have a loss function, and we need to have an optimizer. So what is the loss function? The loss, in fact, is a gap between the predictor and a function that try to give a number when the predictor is away from the actual values or expected values. So essentially loss are important. Why? Because our, in fact, goal in machine learning or deep learning is simply to predict a continuous variable or to predict a category. So if we want to predict a categorical variable, then we should use those loss related to the, this kind of variables. For example, sigmoid loss function. But if we want to predict the continuous measurement, we should go through ReLU loss functions. So in fact, I have all of them in one slide, and will show you how we can do that. So optimizer, in fact, will tell us that which optimization method we should use to build our model. So, and this is the way that we need to find. So the goal in artificial neural network is to find the best weight and the best coefficient, so that we can have the predicted target values as close as to the original target values. So in fact, using artificial deep learning started from 1989 in the Bell Lab. Well, Yan Li Chen, this guy started to read the handwritings. So they wanted to do like a prediction of the handwritings for the digits. For example, I have 31 here, and then we want to see if it is really 31, this digit. So that one started in 1989, and then they continued for reading the zip code or on the mail envelope in the US. And another also, there was some other application in early 1990. So there was a gap until 2011. And the gap is because we didn't have that much data, and we didn't have that much computer power. And then eventually in 2012, so this picture here shows that how the accuracy of the model was. So in the past. So what we see is in 2011, the accuracy of the prediction model was, error rate was around 20 to 40%. And for the same data in 2016, what we got is that the accuracy is, increased, or error rate decreased significantly. So all of those things, in fact, created because of the two main things, or maybe the one main thing is that because our computer become faster and faster, and so that we can have more and more layer, more and more parameters, so that we can have a better fit to our data. So, oh, sorry.
Hello.
Yeah,
we are not able to hear you anymore.
Oh, do you hear me now?
Yes, but we
Okay.
lost your voice for about half a minute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So what I mentioned is that the classification accuracies, in fact, increased from 2011 to 2016 significantly because of the creating the deep learning methods. And I'm going to tell you which methods, in fact, created recently. So as I mentioned, for deep learning, instead of having one single hidden layer, or maybe zero hidden layer, we can create more and more hidden layers, so that they can have better abstract from the data. And then, different kinds of activation function, in fact, created to have better picture of our data. So, and what we are trying to find is, we would like to try to, in fact, to find these W's, or bias or weights, and bias term in such a way that we can have better prediction. So our goal is finding a good function, like called activation function, to see which one can create better output for us. So we can have different kinds of activation function. And so as Alireza told, in fact, for classification, we mostly use a sigmoid function. But for the other purpose, like for continuous outcome measurement, we should use other methods. But the rectified linear unit, or ReLU function, is working very well currently. So So let's go back to our linear regression. And in fact, if we use the linear function as an activation function, then we will simply have our deep learning or artificial neural network will create us the simple linear regression analysis. So we will not have any gain. So this is the picture of this guy is Professor Meshkani. So this is the picture of Professor Meshkani. We created this picture into the some of the variables, outcome variable, and some of the covariates. And then we simply fit a linear model to predict what is the outcome variable. So let's have a look. And so we can have we can even use any of linear model, and we can use any of nonlinear models. So the one question Dr. Kulsum asked that so can we do nonlinear regression? Can we do nonlinear relation with artificial neural network or deep learning? The answer is exactly yes, because the whole, in fact, art of artificial neural networks or deep learning is that they will work when we have nonlinear patterns, so that we can have better accuracy or better performance. So, but we will not lose any things if we use linear exactly the same results as linear regression, which in fact I am going to tell you here. So these are. So for deep learning, we should use two main things. One is called NNNet or neural network. So this package works well. Another thing is called TensorFlow, which is created by Google. So this is very, in fact, very useful when we have, we would like to work with images, or when we would like to have, text, in fact, prediction, or when we would like to have some sophisticated models. So I'm going to tell you about TensorFlows and what is the tensor again. So now if we use, in fact, sorry. So as I mentioned, if we use the library neural network for the prediction of that image, so the error rate will be exactly the same as the error rate of the linear model here. So the error rate for the artificial neural network with two hidden layers is exactly the same as the the error for the linear regression model. So what it tells us that if we use linear regression, I mean, if we use linear activation function, the results of deep learning or artificial neural network will be the same as the results of linear regression analysis. So this is the answer for the question of our audience. And now the question is that if the relation is nonlinear, what we can do? So, and the reason why they are providing the same result is here. So we have some, some z equal to w1x plus b1, y equal to w2 z plus b2. So if we want to have y, then y will be like simply w star x plus b. So that's why the result of linear regression analysis and I mean the deep learning will be the same. So, and here is the results for for different kinds of deep learning if we have multiple hidden layer, etc. So, and sorry, there is one mistake. I think one of my my slides has been missed. So what I was trying to say is I wanted to try to give the picture of the prediction for the I want to try to in fact to give the picture that has been predicted by artificial neural networks and also by linear regression analysis. They had the same in fact picture for the prediction model. So it means that for complicated data we should go through deep learning analysis. So for deep learning with R, so we should have TensorFlow and Keras. So what is the TensorFlow? TensorFlow, in fact, is an application made by Google that use Keras. Keras is a function or package in fact, Python, For those who don't know Python, Python is another like language. It's like R that currently created for machine learning and data science. So we will have, in fact, the TensorFlow and Keras. So for installing Python, we should simply Google Python, and then we should have Keras installed. We should have TensorFlow installed, and then we can use those functions to creating, in fact, machine learning models. So TensorFlow, there are some advantages in TensorFlow. They can work with a different kind of, CPU, GPU, TPU. They have been supported by C++, or what is the TensorFlow? The whole structure of the end and activation, everything is called, what we call this one as a TensorFlow. So this is like a graphical representation. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to optimize the model each time by learning from the data. And how it can optimize, but there are some different algorithms. So the most important one is gradient descent methods. So we have different kind of tensors. So we have two-dimensional tensors like iris data. We have three-dimensional tensors. Like when we have an image, we have four-dimensional tensor. When we have time, and even we could have five-dimensional tensors like a video. So because in video, we have samples, we have frames, we have haze, we have weight, and we have also channels. So what we see is that the TensorFlow can work for any of them, that in fact we cannot use other methods. So, and they use for different kinds of function for creating deep learning methods. So there are the different ways. One is TensorFlow. So which in fact, what we see is the rate of users for TensorFlow is higher than other methods. And there is something called PyTorch, Keras. So TensorFlow is mostly popular, is most popular methods to create deep learning methods. So what we need is we need to install, Keras package in R. We can have, from this function, we can then have, TensorFlow function, and we need to have Python installed in our laptop or in our system. And then we need to go through Anaconda to open R in our studio in Anaconda. And then we need to, in fact, to run our models. So now how we can develop a deep neural network with Keras. So there are four simple steps. One is define our training data, input tensors and target tensors. The second step is define a network of layers or models that maps your inputs to your target values. The third stage is configure the learning process by choosing a loss function, an optimizer, and some metric to monitor. And the fourth stage is to iterate on the training data by calling fit model of your model. So these four steps must be done, and I have the code for all of them, and I will show you how we can do that. So this is an example of how we can do. So you see, like this is in fact 8, and now it tells how we can change the 8 into the matrix of observations or matrix of variables. So there are some here is not so much statistical things that we can do, but there are some packages that we can convert this in fact these images to some some matrix or vectors. So this is called as to categorize, to categorical. So we could do this one, and then we can use them to make classification or clustering. So in step 2, we should have, I mentioned, we should have our model preparation. So we should have some layer dense We should specify how many units that we need to have. We should specify our activation function. We should have our input shape. And then we should have something called layer dropout. So what does it mean, this 4% layer dropout? So, you know, the connection, the artificial neural networks are something, you know, very connected to each other. The second step is totally depends on the first, the second layer is totally depends on the first layer and so on. So, and now this is like a way that if I don't work well, then you can't do work well. Then the third people will no longer work well because we are all related to each other. So this this layer drop out will make some kind of independency between the work of each other. So if the first stage is not done well, then the second stage will not suffer too much. So we need to, in fact, to create this this dropout. And another thing is called in the next is called activation. So if activation for the outcome variable. So see these two, the first two layers. So I do have two layers here. The first two layers, in fact, I use activation function called ReLU function, because the outcome from the first two layer, in fact, is a continuous measurement. So that's why I need to use some, you know, activation function regarding to the continuous measurements. But the outcome is categorizing as 8 or not 8, or to predicting categorical variables. That's why we use the activation as a softmax function. So, and we can also specify the number of parameters in the model to be, in fact, to be estimated. So the number of parameters to model to be estimated with in fact, with three hidden layers is 200, more than 200,000 parameters. So you look, what we see is that there are a lot of parameters that need to be, in fact, estimated. And that's why it needs, you know, a lot of computer power to have a better model. So, and what I also mentioned is that instead of having a multi-class, we may have some, you know, multi-label classification. So multi-class is essentially, you know, classifying this like a cloud, is like a moon, etc. So in multi-label, we may have, you know, different object in one. So we may have at the same time, you know, a cloud, and we may have sun. So what we see is that this is becoming more and more complicated than this one. That's why, in fact, we need, you know, to work with deep learning methods. So as I mentioned, for activation function, we should use softmax if we have categorical variable, and we can use ReLU if we have continuous measurement. So these are some of the things that, in fact, so that the third step in our model is to model, to compile our model. So our loss will be the categorical loss function, and we can have an optimizer like this. And then our metric will be the accuracy, and we can finally have the results. And the classification accuracy for that data was 98%, so which was quite well. So now there are some other steps related to the Keras. There are 65 layers available for the machine learning, for the deep learning methods. So which is called layer dense, layer dropout, layer batch normalization, layer you know, argue. And so we, for any specific data set, we should use you know, proper layer. So for example, if the layer dense is something when we have full connection between the first layer and the second layer, we should use layer dense function. So in time series analysis, we can use you know, simple, in fact, layer simple RNN. We can use layer GRU, and we can use layer _LSTM, because the different the structure of time series analysis is different than what we have in other models. So there are some, you know, nice, in fact, sources regarding to learning, deep learning in R that I have mentioned some of them here. And there is one nice book also related to the deep learning in R, created by Chole. And once I upload this this presentation for you, you can have this book and learn it. So deep learning is a big area. So what I try to say is that how we can build a model deep learning, and how we can optimize the parameter, how we can you know, use different kind of activation function. And here I am going to give you an example to show the difference between the deep learning and the usual artificial neural network. And we want to see what is the gain if we use the deep learning and in this field. So before going there, so I have used the Boston housing data, which is quite popular data. So let me check my time to see how much time I do have. Then I will organize my time to run. Okay, I have.
Let me guide you. I think that how much time do you need at the most?
Maybe just 5 minutes, because
no problem. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So for so I used Boston housing data. So this firstly we need to have you know, Keras, and we need to have so let me show you. We need to install TensorFlow, and we need to install Keras. So then we run these two libraries, Keras and TensorFlow. So these two, in fact, function will make you know, our community to be kind of independent from Python. However, we need to have Python and Anaconda installed in our system. So once we have them, so I had them and I have installed, and I had run the package, etc. So I use this data set, Boston housing data set. So this data set essentially describes the median of the house price based on some covariates, like the crime rate in that area, and the age of the house, etc., and tax, etc. So if we use the simple artificial neural network, so let me just show you the results that I had run in the past. So this is the simple neural network that we created. And so if we use that one, we can have some, you know, predictions and mean square error of the prediction. So look, this is 545. So this is the prediction based on the simple neural network. Now, if I use, because it will take some time to, you know, to have my model ready. So I am going to say you just a final answer. If I use the TensorFlow and deep learning methods that I used, and I'm going to compare the prediction accuracy of these two. So what we see is the error rate here, the mean square error is almost halved, because if we use the efficiency, something called efficiency, it will double the efficiency of the predictions. So this is the way that you know, this artificial neural network and deep learning will work. But now, how we can model these two in these two software, in these two package. So for neural network, as Alireza told, we can have the outcome variables. And oh, by the way, one thing that we need to be careful is that for deep learning artificial neural network, we need to have all variables to be as a continuous measurement. So if we have any factor variables, if we have any character, etc., they must be a continuous variable. So, and even if we have image, they must be changed to the images. I mean, in fact, to the numeric values of pixel, etc. So once we have those, then we need to, in fact, normalize. So normalization sometimes is necessary, sometimes is not so much necessary. So I see that in some cases it works, maybe it will increase the prediction accuracy somehow, but in some case it will not really have, benefit. So the coding is quite simple. So like a linear regression analysis, we could have, our function name. So this is called neural net. We can have outcome variable. We can have predictors. We can specify the number of hidden layers. We can have the linear output. We can have, other arguments. So they are all available in the description of the function. We can simply find them. So, and now for the, in fact, for the deep learning in Keras, so we should have, we should firstly create, so our model. So with Keras model sequential, then we will have our model. We will specify our model. For example, how many layer density I would have, what's the activation function, how is the input shape, etc. And then I will have my, I will compile my model with the loss function. The loss mostly used for the linear outcome. Sorry, for the continuous outcome is MSE. So, and then this is my optimizer name, and then I will use mean square error like as a metric. So then, in fact, I will run my model. I will fit my model, and then I will evaluate my model in the test data. So since it will take some time to run the model, because it is like a iteratively model. So I don't run the model. I will have the code for you. Just you can simply, you have your data and you can run your model. But one of the most important things we need to know is that, as the keynote speaker, Dr. Mariana told us, that all of these, in fact, these methods are data driven. We need to work with them. We need to play with them. For example, we need to work with epochs to see which epochs is better for us. Maybe 100, maybe 200, etc. So all of these, in fact, these parameters are data driven, and there is no best solution to any specific data. We need to, in fact, work with them. We need to modify them, change them to see which one has better fit to our data. So thank you very much. And I'll be happy to discuss any question if you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reza. Anybody else? I would like to encourage other people to put questions too. We have had some excellent questions from Dr. Kulsum and Dr. Itrat Naghmi. Some other people might have some burning question. Dr. Sharka, would you like to put a question? Anybody else?
Yes, please, if I have time.
Yes, Professor Hadi, please.
Yeah, first, thank you very much for two excellent presentations. I'm sorry I didn't attend the previous ones. I have one question here. As you know, neural networks and deep learning has a lot of parameters, and therefore they require a lot of data in terms of the number of observations. Has anybody done any research equivalent to what we say in statistics, the sample size determination? How small the sample size is, so that we can say that the results are actually reliable. So, for example, in the serial data, we have 75 observations, and we took 60% of that, means we have 45 observations for the training. And then we have, even for the simple neural network, not to mention the deep learning, there are so many parameters there. Has anybody done research on what the minimum size that should be allowable? For example, in chi-square, we say the cell should not have less than 5 observations. Has anybody done research in that area?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Actually, since they are not like statistics, we don't want to do inference. So that's why, like those things are related to somehow the inferences. So what in deep learning or machine learning want is that they want to do predictions. So, and that's why it's like a black box. So you give me the data and I will give you the answer. And medical science do not so much interested to this kind of things, because they want to know the reason why you predict me as you know, to have, you know, some disease, etc. So essentially, you know, as I mentioned, the deep learning created to, you know, some sophisticated data like image recognition or you know, some multi-label classification, etc. I can show you here an example that our simple linear regression analysis work better than any other deep learning methods for very simple data set, you know. So when we emphasize on machine learning or deep learning, we don't want to, in fact, to decrease the benefit of our statistical models. So, but the answer to your question is that I haven't seen any research regarding that. I had a student and I have given him like a extensive simulation study to provide the answer to this question. Is really so where, or I mean, in which scenario deep learning or machine learning work better than statistics? And is it really, you know, significant? So this is the thesis that I have, in fact, suggested to one of my students to do, even by empirical things, because as I mentioned, the recent systematic review showed there is no performance benefit on machine learning over logistic regression. And when I asked this question from one of the big data scientists, his name is Paul McNicholas, and he's a big guy and doing classification. You may know him. He is at McMaster University. And I said, see, like this paper, what is your idea? He says that logistic regression is a machine learning. So, so I'm going to tell you that now our statistics is still, you know, working very well to me.
All right. Any other questions, please? Anybody else? If not, then we can wind up this workshop. Let me share my screen again. I just want
thank
to...
you. By the way, Dr. Saleha, I would like to say something. I would like to appreciate Dr. Madhuliyat, because some parts of my presentation are coming from his presentation. That so I would like to reference him, because he did a great job for this kind of things.
So what is his complete name and his where is he working?
I think I don't know his affiliation very well. I mean, he is in Australia, but
Okay.
his last name is Dr. Madhuliyat. I can tell you later on the email.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Thanks. So I would like to thank both of you for doing this for us. It's been great to have had you. But before I say anything else, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share my screen again for a second, and would like you to look at this particular slide, which is not my slide, which is the one that Reza had sent to me last evening. I think today you were not showing us this one. So this says that artificial intelligence covers machine learning, if I've understood it properly. Or could you explain this one to us? This would be perhaps the last question for today. Can you explain this to us, this slide?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, in fact, I had less time, so I want to rush to finalize. So yeah, this is the big picture of what is the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So artificial intelligence, in fact, is an umbrella. It says that, so what we can learn from the data and make like intelligence, like a human. So artificial intelligence is the umbrella that contains machine learning. And within machine learning, we have deep learning. So machine learning is those techniques that, in fact, we discovered in these 4 sessions. And the deep learning is something new. As I mentioned, after 2011, it come to the, in fact, to the application, and it use machine learning plus, you know, computer power. And now Google, you know, created some, you know, API, for deep learning, and other companies like PyTorch created. So they are all data-driven methods, and what we call them as data mining techniques in a general category.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like all of you to join me in thanking Dr. Reza Arabi Belaghi and Dr. Alireza Safariyan for doing this for us. It's a great thing for us that people from another very close country they have done this for us, and then it's great to have people from all over the world.
May I ask one question more for Reza?
Okay.
Professor Arabi.
Okay, sure.
Would you mind if I do? Okay. The last picture you have shown is, I have come across with this picture many times. Would you describe this picture as the artificial intelligence as the grandparent of deep learning? And machine learning is like, say, the father of deep learning, and the grandparent would be the artificial intelligence. Is that so?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And this is, I agree with you.
Okay, it seems like that. In this picture, when I look at this picture, I would say artificial intelligence is the most above. It's like a grandparent, and machine learning is mother or father of the deep learning, and deep learning is the grandchild. Seems to be the grandchild of the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you for this comment. I think now we will be waiting for the offspring of deep learning. So then artificial intelligence will become the great grandparent.
Okay.
And maybe in 5 years' time, we will have that. So let me now thank both of them again. And also now, how much time do we have? We have about 9 minutes. So I do want to say that even if it couldn't be too many people, but if some of you could give us feedback, some of the participants who have attended all 4 of them, many of you have attended all 4 of them. If somebody could give us an overall feedback as to whether this has actually helped in any way. Anybody who would like to say anything regarding this entire experience of these 4 workshops? Dr. Najla Karmala, I can see you there. Najla is from Saudi Arabia. Would you like to say something, Dr. Najla?
Hello, Dr. Saleha. No, thanks. Thanks for all things.
Okay. Dr. Kulsum, I think you were wanting to say something.
Dr. Naghmi, definitely, I would like to add to my thank you note that I'm extremely thankful to Dr. Alireza and Dr. Reza for rendering the series of highly informative talks. I mean, before attending these talks, I mean, I hardly have had the knowledge. I mean, I have a little bit knowledge of the classification and the techniques they have shared with us, but I'm pretty sure that all of us, all the participants, we have learned a lot from their talks, and definitely there is always a room for learning. So after attending their workshops, that it give us what we call that more into the kind of learning we want to learn a lot. I mean, we just what could I say, they just gave us the food for the thought. So I'm sure that much is to be learn, And I felt that after attending these workshops, I deeply felt that there is just a little bit that we actually know. And that's why I would like to thank Dr. Alireza and Dr. Raza. They were a great teachers. I mean, I'm sure they are the great researchers, but the way they have rendered these workshops, so it has just shown that how they have tackled the questions and the way they have covered it after accommodating those questions and the kind of clarity they have had onto the topic. So I'm extremely grateful for them for rendering these workshops for us and giving us the food for thought that we really want to learn these concepts in detail in future. Thank you so much, both of you. And in addition to that, Dr. Saleh Naghmi, I would like to thank you because you are the driving force for motivating us to attend these kind of workshops, and we are highly thankful to you and the PISTAR under the umbrella of iSauce, who are doing wonders. They are doing a great job in inculcating that kind of knowledge and sharing with us those kind of people. It was a great learning experience though. So I'm looking forward to more workshops and the kind of trainings and the talks that that could aid to our knowledge in future. Thank you so much, Dr. Naghmi and the entire team of PISTAR.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kulsum. Would anybody else like to say something right now, especially people from the other countries who are here? If not, then I would like to hand over to my dear student and the youngest member of the team, Ms. Aqsa Abid. I would like her to present the vote of thanks in a formal manner. So Aqsa, would you like me to share the slides or would you like to share your slides yourself?
Ma'am, please, you can do this for me.
I can do it? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, before you do that, I do want to say one more thing. Sorry for this, that I forgot. That, we are also, and sorry for this spelling mistake because I just very quickly typed it. In addition to that one session that we are going to have, we are also going to have post-conference workshops. We are trying to have two, and these will be on Sunday, the 21st of February, and these will be on site at the either at iSauce House or at Imperial College, where the conference will be happening for the 3 days prior to Sunday, 21st of February. So as Reza was talking about Python, there you have it right here. It is coming up as one of the post-conference workshops. All right, now it is over to you, Ms. Aqsa Abid. I will get to what you wrote.
Professor Dr. Naghmi Habibullah, convener online workshop on machine learning. Professor Marina Mela, the keynote speaker. Dr. Reza Arabi Belaghi, the lead resource person. Dr. Alireza Safariyan, co-resource person, and participants of the workshop. It's a privilege and great joy for me to extend a great vote of thanks to all those who have contributed in one way or the other to make this workshop a great success. Ladies and gentlemen, the driving force behind this series of workshops is Professor Dr. Saleha Naghmi, Dr. Wasim Abbas, and the dynamic PISTAR team. The vision, interest, and hard work of these persons have once again culminated in another success story. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of them for the efforts they put into organizing this workshop with international experts. Next, please. The knowledge and expertise shared by the keynote speaker and the international resource persons was highly fruitful. All three contributors to this workshop deserve a sincere appreciation and gratitude from all of us. In the end, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being with us today. This workshop series could not have been successful without your keen interest in broadening your knowledge and insight regarding machine learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear Aksa. Well, this is the time for to close this workshop, and I would like to request all my colleagues, the team members, to please open their cameras so that everybody can see you. The PISTAR team consists of Mr. Muhammad Iftikhar, who is unfortunately not able to be here today because he's traveling. Otherwise, you see him every time. He's Executive Secretary of ISOS. And then, of course, we have Professor Muhammad Aslam, the senior most team member of PISTAR. Professor Aslam, I hope that you have opened your camera. I myself am not able to see you right now, but I think others can. And Dr. Sharka Hashmi, who's Assistant Professor at Lahore College for Women University. Ms. Zulekha Mashkoor is unable to be here today as she is not very well. And Ms. Kamal Aslam is also a very dynamic team member, but unable to be here today because of her sister's wedding. I do want to talk about Aksa, the young lady who's just presented the vote of thanks. I do want every single one of you to know that she has done tons of tons of things that she's written with me and worked with me. Very, very hardworking young lady. Thank you so much. All right, the focal person of this workshop is, of course, Dr. Syed Wasim Abbas, who works very, very hard. He also works very hard. There's no doubt about that. And then my name is Saleha. So hopefully I will see you, we will all see you at the online session of the International Invited Speakers on 18th of February, 2021. Thank you so much, and may Allah bless each and every one of you. This is the time to end the recording.